The Firebirds of Titicaca. South America is a continent of tropical rainforest and river. High in the highest mountain is Lake Titicaca. This lake, flanked by forest, is the home for a huge population of wildlife, and as the forests are deep and inaccessible, most of that wildlife is of the feathered variety. Due to the warm, humid air and the neighbouring mountains, the air was crisscrossed with strong currents, which enabled birds to rise to great heights and glide for hours on end, searching for food or safe nesting grounds. Most of these birds had beautiful plumage, or a song which penetrated the forest and brought tranquility and joy to the ears of man and beast alike. But there was one bird which had no such charm. Its voice was coarse and crackling, its feathers were dull and oily, and its wings were wide and cumbersome. So unattractive was this bird that no one had even thought to name it. There were the lilac tones of the forest creeper, the sweet song of the lake skimmer, the nesting skills of the engineer bird, and countless other species with beautiful habits and matching names. And then there was that bird. These nameless birds were so unattractive that rather than suffer the scorn of the others, they chose instead to soar high in the warm thermals circling above the forest and roost in the equally ugly crags of the mountainside. They dared not glide low above the lake for fear of being offended by their own reflection in the mirror-smooth waters. They ate on the berries of the mountain rowan and sipped on the melted snow. These birds were worthless and shared the contempt heaped on the common fly and cattle tick. One day, however, nature would cause things to change dramatically for these humble creatures. It was a very warm and humid day. A combination of warm winds blowing from the east and cold clouds hanging heavily above the mountain brought about an angry confrontation of warm and cold cloud formations. First, there was a rumble of thunder, and then flashes of lightning. The humid air caused the lightning to form a spectacular display of fire, which slowly worked its way towards the forest of Titicaca. As it advanced, the creatures of the forest took shelter in panic. From their perches high above the forest, the birds watched in relative safety. Then it happened. A powerful streak of lightning struck a tall tree, which was soon engulfed with flame. The tree was brought down and crashed into the others on the forest edge. The flames leapt like mischievous devils from tree to tree, until soon the whole forest edge was afire. And then the forest itself would be covered in devouring fire, and the wildlife would be destroyed. Just as the inevitable was about to arrive, a strange thing happened. A powerful wind began to blow from the forest, stopping the fire in its tracks and forcing it back towards the lake. But this was no ordinary wind. This was a wind caused by the beating of thousands of great, ungainly wings. The birds, seeing the plight in the forest below, had decided to act. They had circled high above, and knowing that approaching from the lake would have only fanned the flames further into the forest, had chosen to fly against the fire and halt its advance. The plan had worked, but only for a while. Now the flames were being fed by beating of wings and rose higher and more powerful for another attack. There was only one thing the birds could do. They must beat out and smother the flames with their own wings. The heat was immense, but the brave creatures swooped down and set about the flames at ground level. Great trees crashed around them as they slapped down and smothered the inferno. The task seemed impossible, as the flames were so powerful and the birds' wings were being scorched. Every so often, the birds would fly to the lake and soak their wings in water, swiftly returning to their duties at the fire front. Each time they caught their reflection in the water and realised how much more ugly they were beginning to look with their scorched and withering plumage. Almost miraculously, the birds' persistence began to pay off. The fire began to lose heart, and what had been a thick wall of flame was now becoming patchy. The battle continued into the night, and a thick cloud of smoke filled the air so that the forest could not be seen. It was only the next day that the results of the birds' endeavours could be seen. Large sections of the forest were charred and smoking, with only a litter of black shapes left in place of the dense greenery that had once been. But worse still, along the length of the debris lay the scorched bodies of thousands of birds, the only reminder of the bravery of those selfless creatures. Were this the end of our story, it would be sad, but nature is a magical thing, and capable of presenting wonderful rewards. As they lay there, the birds' hearts began to beat, first slowly and quietly, but then they beat so loudly that the forest echoed with a sound like multitudinous applause. And then, from the blackened carcasses, small but discernible feathers began to appear. These feathers were unlike their plain and oily predecessors. These feathers were taking the colour of the flames they had beaten out. Reds, blues, greens and yellows, which flashed in the sunlight. Soon the forest would spring back into verdant splendour, and soaring above that splendour would be the beautiful Firebirds.